A state manager is a data layer that allows all the components of your app to access the same data at the same time. Concretely, it's really just a bunch of objects that will be updated in very specific cases, and all your components will be able to access those objects whenever they need to. In Redux, those objects are called reducers. You can have as many reducers as you want, and the idea is to combine them together to create what is called a store, and this store will be accessible throughout the whole application. So let's do that. So first, let's create a few new folders. We're going to make a folder called State Manager, and this is where all the data layer accessible throughout the application will be stored. Inside of this folder, we have a reducers folder where we are going to organize all our different reducers. The index.js here, it's going to be the interface of the state manager to allow us to export the store in an easy way. So let's create our very first reducer. It's going to be a very simple object with only one attribute called app name. And the next step now is to specify how we want to update this state according to the different kind of actions that are available throughout the app. So an action can be triggered by the click of a button, the change of like any kind of situation, an API call, anything really. So usually what we do is we have a set of action types that are very clearly defined, and then the reducer is a switch statement that will handle every cases essentially. And by default, we just return the state as it is already. The other tricky part here is to pay attention to the default value of the state. So it's important to have a default parameter here in the function, so Redux knows how to initialize the value in the first time this function is called. All right, so now we have our reducer, and it can already be called throughout the app in theory. However, we still need to set up the whole store to include it inside the application. So that's what we are doing right now. We have a new index.js file that will export the reducers. Well, first combine the reducers, as I was talking about earlier, and those combined reducers will then be exported inside of the store. So the function we're using is called a combined reducer, so it's pretty straightforward. And really, you just pass it an object of all the reducers you have done so far. So if we have a new one later on called user, we'll just import it here and export it inside of the combined reducer function. All right, so we have our reducer. Let's go to the store itself now. So Redux again has a useful function called create store, and we are going to export the result of this function, and that's what will actually create the store used by the application. So this store will have to be included in the app later on, as you will see. So since we have combined all our reducers in the previous step, we just have to import it here and then export it export all of them as at once. So that's pretty handy and straightforward. So now this is the very root of the application, the index.js. And we just have to import the store as we created it, and making sure that the app is still loading. And now the last step in order to access our reducers is actually to make our app as a child of the provider component. So this is where one of the times where React Redux is coming handy. All right, so now what do we do? Well, the idea is to use this reducer information in one of our components. So that's what we are going to do here. Again, we are going to use one of the hooks made available by the React Redux package. And it's a very clean and easy way to access our reducers. So the use selector here is a handy hook. It takes the state. So the state here will be the whole combined reducers all together. And so we can then return exactly the reducer that we want to use in our app. So now the App Store object here actually is an exact copy of the app reducer that we just created. So we can access all its attributes, and those attributes will be up to date all the time. It's important to note that the use selector hook trigger the re-render of the component. So when whatever we are loading inside of the use selector hook is updated by any mean, this component will be re-rendered. And now you can see that we can access the app name directly and display it in the home component. So that's working well, so that's good. Now the real value of using a state manager, and that's what I want to show you here, is that you can use the same information in different places of your app and have all of them updated at the same time. So what we are going to do here is to display the name of the app in the banner component as well. And there we go. Everything is in place. And the next step is to set up our actions now.